One goal for each NFL team this upcoming season. 49ers. The goal for the 49ers should be to find someone on their roster who can rizz up Taylor Swift. I'm kidding, but after losing the Super Bowl last season, of course the goal this season would be to bounce back and to make things right. I know every team has the common goal of winning it all, but if one team needs that to be their specific goal, it's gotta be the 49ers, especially after last year's blunder. They've got the talent, the coaching, and the momentum, but do they have that 1989 passion? Only time will tell. Bears. The Chicago Bears' goal for 2024 would be to go 500, at least have an equal amount of wins as losses, if not better. Whether that takes them to the playoffs or not in the NFC North is up in the air. They should also continue to develop Caleb Williams into a franchise player and build a competitive offense. With a talented supporting cast, they can challenge for a playoff spot, but again, this is the NFC North, and these are the Bears. However, if Caleb Williams continues to perform consistently, the future is bright. Bengals, just don't get banged up. The Bengals ended last season going 9-8, but that was because of injury issues and a banged up Joe Burrow with a wrist injury that led Cincy to missing the playoffs. The goal this season should not only be to make the postseason, but also to pretend like it's 2022, except this time win it all and not end up like 2022. With the Bills, you are a franchise with 4 straight division titles, but within that time frame, just one AFC title game. What are the odds of that? That almost reminds me of the time that one franchise went to 4 straight Super Bowls but lost them all. I wonder who that was. Obviously, outside of the goal of winning a Super Bowl, their personal goal should not only be to go for 5 straight division titles, but of course to get over that hill and have another AFC title game under their belt. With a talented quarterback like Josh Allen and a strong defense, they are certainly contenders, but let's not hope they end up as pretenders. The Broncos. Let's hope they're not the ponies this season. The primary goal at least should be to develop Bo Nix into a reliable starting quarterback while remaining competitive in the AFC West. Under Sean Payton's guidance, the team should focus on maximizing Nick's growth and building a balanced offense that play into his strength. And you could kind of get the gist where I'm going with this. As an overall team, don't expect too much, but they should aim for the long term and just start working on that ground roots foundation. The Browns. Oh boy, the Browns. I don't even know what to say without my head hurting. As a Browns fan, if I'm too open-minded about the Browns, my brain will fall out. And if I'm too closed-minded, my brain will suffocate. So I really need to find that Goldilocks zone when discussing this circus of a franchise that I have a love-hate relationship with. For example, just imagine being a Browns fan and being upset that your team went 11-6 last season. Outside looking in, on paper, that should be a citywide celebration. Having a winning season in Cleveland should be epic, yet in real time, it felt like a disappointment considering the devastating Nick Chubb injury, Joe Flacco not returning, and don't even get me started on everyone's favorite quarterback who's definitely not overpaid, Deshaun Watson. Going back to Nick Chubb, he's at the very least going to miss the first 4 games. What happens next? Nobody knows. I hate to sound dumbfounded for this section of the video, but the goal for the Browns should be to win a Super Bowl, and yes, I'm crazy for saying that, but I'm crazy for being a Browns fan, so that's what you're gonna get. Next up, we have the Buccaneers, and they say 3 times the charm, but I really think for this franchise, 4 times should be the charm, because the Bucs won the NFC South for 3 seasons in a row. Their goal should not only to win it 4 times in a row, but to expand upon that and have a deep playoff run. It's a little head-scratching how the Bucs even managed to win all these NFC South titles consecutively. You would think for a franchise that had so many roster updates within such a short amount of time to still be successful, that's some honorable work. Moving on, we have the Cardinals. For the 2024 Arizona Cardinals, the primary goal should be to capitalize on their offensive potential while working to minimize their defensive liabilities that could lead to shutouts. With Kyler Murray healthy and the addition of Marvin Harrison Jr., the focus should be on building a top-tier offense that can consistently score points. At the same time, the team must find ways to improve defensively and stay competitive in the NFC West and reduce the burden of their explosive offense. To elaborate further, this team was dead last in their division going 4-13 last season. And yes, you can blame that on injury and inexperience, and that's why the goal for this franchise right now is to really stop being so predictable. I think that's also one of the big reasons why they kept losing so many games last season. And now for the Chargers, just make the playoffs. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. You got a new coach, you're in the AFC West, so I get it, but but you got a talented quarterback like Justin Herbert and a strong defense. Just make the playoffs this season, and then once we cross that bridge, think of a new goal once you get there. Just get there at least. The Chiefs are the kings of the NFL, and they're not giving up their crown without a fight. They've dominated the AFC for years, they've dominated the league for years, and they're looking to make history by winning 3 Super Bowls in a row, which has never happened. It won't be easy. They got the rest of the league gunning for them, and they have to be at their absolute best to stay on top. But they do have what it takes. They do have the potential to be the first three-peat franchise in NFL history. Of course, that is their goal. As for the Colts, they were a bit of a pleasant surprise for 2023. They had a winning record, and of course, that wasn't good enough to win the division, but it is the AFC South, so anything honestly could happen. No one expected the Texans to win the South, but they did, so again, anything could happen. With that in mind, I don't have anything too specific for the Colts, other than continuing to develop Anthony Richardson as their quarterback and really make sure he's going to be a reliable starter. But for the sport of it, obviously the goal would be to aim for the playoffs, but the true goal should be something a little more deeper. You want to think of the long term with this type of momentum. Don't really try to stuff everything into 2024 as if this was do or die, because it's not for this franchise. They really got to think long term and try to build a dynasty here. Ironically, we have sort of the opposite for the next team, being the Commanders. Coming off of a 4-13 season would make you think this team's goal should be not to think of the postseason, but in the NFC East, honestly, I wouldn't rule it out. The NFC East in the past few seasons have been very sporadic. However, that's more of a criticism of the NFC East, not so much a compliment of the Commanders. So don't get too happy about that. Look, you got new ownership, a new coaching staff, a promising young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and a talented roster. It's a weak NFC East division, but don't use that as a crutch. And now for the Cowboys, but really, do you need me to tell you what's going to happen with the Cowboys? The Cowboys are kind of like the Lakers of the NFL. Like, nothing they're going to do is going to impress the world unless they win a Super Bowl. They could win the division, which they did last season, but that's not good enough, okay? This is the Cowboys. You guys are like supposed to be America's team. I hate to say it, but you're either going to get clowned on or you're going to get crowned on, and the only way to get a crown would be to literally win it all, which should be their goal, whether that's realistic, whether that's too much expectations or not. This is the Cowboys franchise, that's what you're going to get. And now for the Dolphins. The Dolphins have not won a single postseason game since the year 2000. This is the longest active playoff win drought streak in the entire NFL currently. So despite how good their regular season heroics are, and despite their goals to win it all, their very first most immediate goal for this upcoming season would be to snap that decades-long playoff losing streak. Moving on, we have the Eagles. By week 12 of last season, at that point, the Eagles were 10-1. They really looked like that was their year before they flew too close to the sun and completely fell off. With a loaded roster and a quarterback who already took that next step, like he proved he could get you there, the Eagles have all the ingredients for a Super Bowl run. But will they be able to avoid that dreaded Super Bowl hangover from a few seasons ago and maintain their dominance throughout the season? Only time will tell, but their goal should be to overcome said Super Bowl hangover. For the Falcons, I got 2 words for you. Kirk Cousins. Actually, I got 2 more words for you. NFC South, or is that 4 words? Unless NFC counts. I'm losing focus here. You have a wide open division and a major update at the QB position. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't care how old Kirk is. Your goal is to take the NFC South and run all the way to Lombardi Trophy if you can. At the very least, just take the NFC South. That should be your goal for this next season. And now for the Giants, who don't feel so big. There's a lot of uncertainty though. Does that equal size? I don't know. They did just come off of a 6-11 season, but there is way too many questions and not enough answers. Daniel Jones needs to prove himself. So a primary goal for this team in 2024 would be to establish offensive consistency. Don't aim for specific numbers, don't aim for a specific record, just be consistent. You got new pieces with Malik and a revamped offensive line, ensuring that Jones minimizes turnovers and maximizes explosive plays. Consistency in scoring and protecting the football will be crucial for staying competitive in a tough NFC East. And now for the Jaguars. By week 12 of last season, the Jags were 8-3. At the top of their performance, they really looked like they were no longer kittens and were apex predators. And then of course they had a self-imploded 4-game losing streak and a final record of 9-8, which actually is not too shabby if you think about it. On paper, 9-8, that's a winning season, that's pretty good. And that was with their self-implosion. So their goal this season should go in and take that AFC South. They were second last season with a meltdown. I don't see why not make that the goal for this season. Jets. The goal for the Jets is to not have Aaron Rodgers experience It's another season-ending injury. Winning the AFC East will be a challenge, so the goal I think would be to get the most out of A-Rod before he becomes no-Rod and retires. Fight for a wild card spot and make the postseason, but don't really expect too much if you're going to overexert him again. Next up, we got the Lions. The Lions are no longer the laughingstock of the NFL. They are actually now again the king of the jungle, at least almost. They're certainly a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and they're ready to prove it. With a stacked roster and a coach who's got the team fired up, the Lions are ready to shock the world. Watch out, Chiefs. The Lions are coming for your crown. Or at least that should be their goal, considering how well they did last season despite the disappointing end. And now for the Packers. For Green Bay, do we love as the next potential AP MVP of the NFL? Outside of a personal goal for him winning that this season, a team goal would consist of competing for a playoff spot in a very competitive NFC North division and maybe challenge for a Super Bowl, but at least make the playoffs. With a talented quarterback like Jordan Love and a strong supporting cast, they have the potential to be a contender, but their goal should at the very least just make the postseason and then cross that bridge when you get there. And now for the Panthers. The Panthers just came off of a 2-15 season, and I know the NFC South isn't too crazy, but when you're 2-15 bad, the goal for 2024 should be something more simple and grounded, like involving Bryce Young and developing chemistry with his upgraded receiving cores and showing growth as a leader as the overall team works on its offensive line and defensive consistency. Even if playoff contention remains out of the reach for now, steady progress in these areas will set the stage for a stronger future. Next up, it's the Patriots. This is the first season since the year 2000 without Bill Belichick, and of course it's been a few seasons without Tom Brady. It really feels like a completely new era for what was once the greatest, or at least one of the greatest, NFL dynasties. The goal for the Patriots this season would be to just find an identity in Drake May and make sure that their go-to guy is Drake for years to come. They shouldn't try to do anything serious now with any pressure or expectations, just find an identity. The Las Vegas Raiders' goal for 2024 would be to find stability at the quarterback position and build a competitive offense. They play in the same division as the Chiefs, so it's going to be tough to win the division, but I think they could be better than the Broncos and the Chargers, but second is sometimes the first worst option. Gardner Minshew is their starting quarterback this season. Yes, the same Gardner who lives in a van during the offseason, but that's for a good reason. It's going to be tough to dethrone the Chiefs in this division, but their goal should at the very least try to make the postseason some other way. I'm sure they could make it happen. For the Rams, they gotta ram through and find out they could replace Aaron Donald. Can they prove they're more than just a one-man show? Because after losing Aaron Donald, this team will need to find a way to remain dominant without his presence on the defensive line. If they can do that, then they could be a surprise contender for the NFC West. But let's be honest, it's gonna be tough without a defensive tackle of that caliber. It still should be their goal though. Next up, we got the Ravens. They've been a playoff contender for years, but they haven't been able to get over that hump and win a Super Bowl for a third time. They did it twice before, but they're going for number 3. They got close last year. They were in that final 4, but they really want to be that final 1. On the opposite end, we got the Saints. The Saints are stuck in mediocrity. They're not bad enough to get a top 5 pick, but they're not good enough to make a deep playoff run. It's time for a change. The Saints need to either rebuild and make a splash move and break out of this cycle and become a contender again, or stay in the mud. It's up to them, but their goal should be to break the chain one way or another. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks. Winning the NFC West will be tough when they play in the same division as the 49ers, but they should make it a goal to at least compete for the postseason. They have a great quarterback in Geno Smith, they have a new coach in Mike McDonald, and yes, I know 2023 Geno Smith was not the same Geno Smith we've seen of the past. However, their success will depend on McDonald's ability to lead the team effectively and Smith's ability to bounce back from a disappointing 2023 season. Steelers fans, I got good news for you. The Steelers haven't had a losing season since 2003. But I also have bad news for you. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. So their goal is to, of course, continue having winning seasons, but they want to break that losing streak in the postseason and finally get at least one postseason win. The Texans are ready to rock the world. Last year they shocked the world, but now it's time to rock the world. After their surprise playoff run last year, they've added even more firepower to their roster. With CJ Stroud at the helm and a loaded defense, they're not just the surprise team anymore. They're contenders, and maybe that might be too soon to put that label on them, but look, teams are no longer going to be having a blind eye on them. In fact, it would be the opposite. They will not be relaxed when facing them. The pressure will be up, so the goal should most certainly be to expand on last season's success and go even further. Do not get the sophomore slump. And now for the Titans. Never say never in the AFC South, But realistically, with Derrick Henry gone, the Titans shouldn't be shooting for the stars, and we really shouldn't be remembering the Titans for this upcoming season. A more realistic goal would be for them to play the long game. The Titans face a season of uncertainty with a new head coach and less experienced roster. Their goal for 2024 would be to develop their young talent and build a strong foundation for the future. And last but not least, we have the Vikings. Do not let last season's 7-10 record fool you. This team can very much compete for a playoff spot. And with Sam Darnold at QB, this team now has consistent leadership and a quarterback at that position. While their defense needs improvement, their strong offense gives them a chance to at least try to make the wild card this season, and that should be their goal to make the postseason. So here was one goal for every NFL team for this upcoming 2024-25 season. Let me know who you think has the best shot at a Super Bowl and what you're looking forward to this season. Don't forget to tackle that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Touchdown Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.